Hi, this is Gene Trowbridge with the law firm of Trowbridge Nieh. We're securities lawyers, and we do securities work where people raise money from other investors to do any number of things. Real estate, last year we did a hockey team, inventions, cable wiring systems. There are all sorts of things, avocado groves, all sorts of things that we do when we need investments from, we're out of money from the family, we're out of money of our own, we're out of money from the banks, and we need to do a project. So we put together a group of investors. That's the securities world, and that's the type of lawyer I am. And in this video, I want to talk to you about something that I see happening today. This is very timely, and I call this video Is This Fraud? And I think you'll see what I mean as we go through the conversation. So I'm the founding partner of our law firm. I was a syndicator for about 20 years, putting together a number of syndications. And generally what we did was we built self-storage facilities and then sold them to operators. I've been a real estate broker forever, 40 years as a CCIM senior instructor. When I was 45, I went to law school and became a lawyer just to be a securities lawyer. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I have a book called It's a Whole New Business, and the 4th edition is out. I'll show you at the end of this video how you can get a free PDF or actually a copy of the book. And I'm an old runner. I run half marathons, a couple each year, and the word old is true. I get a little slower each year, but I make it through the finish line. So that keeps me going. So the first question is the sponsor committing fraud? That's what this is about. And what I see happening is the sponsor is returning the investor's capital and telling them it's a return on their investment. If you're returning capital, it's a return of their investment. If the project is making money, the money it's making is a return on the investment. Don't mix those two things. Don't mix those things because it's fraud. So how does this work? If you deposit $100,000 in a savings account, paying 10% a year, at the end of the year, you go to the bank and there's $110,000 in your account. Okay. So you take out the $10,000, which is the 10% return on your money. So you still have $100,000 of your money in the account. You earned 10%. So the 10% is a return on your money. But if you take out $15,000, did you earn 15%? No. The extra $5,000 was a return of your money. In this distribution of 15%, 10% is earned and 5% is a return of capital. So we need to apply the same thought process inside of an LLC where there are investors. So I see this happening when a sponsor simply raises more money that they need, which is always a good idea to have reserves. But in this case, the sponsor is raising more money than they need in an offering with the intent of making distributions from this extra money they raised before the property actually makes any money, and does not explain that fact to the investors. Where would that come from? A development project, a rehab project. So during the first 18 months to 2 years, all we're doing is construction. There is no money coming from operations. There is no return. But you're sending checks to the people. And where are you getting the money? You're getting the money from the extra money you raised at the beginning of time and put in your savings account. It's their money. And now you're making distributions to them, and you're telling them, oh, we're giving you 6% cash on cash. Well, no, you're not. You're giving them 6% of their money back. You're making a distribution. but it's based on their money. So that's wrong. A sponsor makes distribution from reserves that they've set aside for some other purpose. I had this experience once where an investor, they put together a project and they bought an office building that was going to need extensive air conditioning unit replacements. There were 32 air conditionings on the roof, and they raised enough money to do all of them. But as they were going along, they dug into their reserve account to make distributions because there was a problem with occupancy and vacancy in the project. And so when it came time to replace the air conditioning units, they didn't have enough money left in their reserves to do that. But they told the people that this was a return on their money, the money they were distributing, and part of it was simply the reserves. That's wrong. Whenever a sponsor tells their investors that the distribution is a yield, but really is just returning their own money to them, all these things are fraudulent. And what happens with fraudulent things? Well, you go to court. I'm not sure these things are criminal, but they're certainly civil, and you get fined and you get in trouble. What was Bernie Madoff doing? Fraudulent things? Sure, that was so egregious that he ended up in jail. Okay? Not everyone's going to end up in jail, but when you manage other people's money, you have a standard you have to operate to, and that's when fraud or misrepresentation comes into play with how you handle your investors' money. What can happen to the sponsor? It could be a civil lawsuit. It could be a criminal lawsuit, depending upon the extent of the fraud. So my message is, don't do that. Just don't do that. And if you're an investor listening to that, here's what I think that you can protect yourself. It says there are offerings where the investors are told that what they're getting is a return of their capital. After they get all of their money back, they start earning a return on the money. That's okay. We can say that. We can say everything that we distribute is going to be counted on as a return of your money. And after you have all of your money back, everything that comes to you is new money. Specifically at the sale of a project, this is language we put in all the time. On the sale of the property, we've got this pile of cash. We're going to give you your money back first. There'll be a complete return of capital. Any extra money that we have will be a return on, because you've already got your money back. That makes sense. But in this case, the sponsor must use the term distribution rather than yield. You are receiving a distribution based on 10% of your initial capital. So it's not return on, it's not cash on cash, it's a distribution. Fine. That's legal. And you could distribute everything through the operations. It's all return of capital until all of your capital is returned. Then your distributions change character and they become return on. You have to spell that out so you're not misleading the investors on what's happening in the project. Investors should understand the source of the distributions. Sponsors should make it clear to the investors. That's what I find is very interesting about that. Sponsors send out quarterly income and expense statements, and I'm not sure every investor actually reads them and looks at them to see what's happening. So here's what I see. We have an offering. We raised $1 million. We're projecting a cash on cash return of 100,000. Okay. The project produces 200 in income, 45,000 expenses, 55,000 on debt service. So there is cash flow of $100,000. So the distribution is $100,000. That is a return on the investment, 10%. Perfect. That's the way the information that goes to the investor in the quarterly report should read. But what if the information comes out like this? We raised $1 million. We're promising you or we're projecting, excuse me, never say promise. We're projecting $100,000, 10% cash on cash. The property produced 200. We paid expenses. We paid debt service, and there's $90,000 of cash flow, and we're sending you a check of $100,000. If I'm an investor and I read that, my question would be, where does the extra $10,000 come from? It doesn't come from operations because there's only 90, but you're sending me 100. The return on is 9%. Where does the other $10,000 come from? And if I'm an investor and I see that, I'm immediately calling the manager and I'm immediately challenging them that it's not a 10% cash on cash return. It's 9%, and you're into the reserves. You're sending some of our own money back to us, which is a return of capital. And unless the operating agreement calls for your permission to do that, we're doing something that is misrepresentation at the minimum and fraud at the maximum. So that's what I suggest investors do. Be sure you look at your documents and follow what's going on. Where does your cash flow come from? It should always come from operations, unless you're told something different and you understand how this works. So where does the other $10,000 come from? The sponsor's using reserves, drawing down on reserves set aside to improvements, drawing down on reserves set aside for a rainy day. Okay. That's return of capital. You can't call that a yield. The sponsor has other plans. Well, the sponsor's going to go out and raise money up front to use as distributions, but not from earnings, from returning the investor's money to them. That's okay if you're going to tell them it's a distribution, but I don't know why investors would want to give you money just to get it back. That doesn't make any sense. Or they sell new investment units to new investors to use the proceeds for distributions. Bernie Madoff, Ponzi scheme, those things are illegal. Either of these plans are at the least misrepresentations and at the most are fraudulent. So I want you to be aware of that as your sponsor. Don't do that. And as an investor, look at the statement that comes to you and see if you can decide how the project is making the money that they're sending you in distributions. Now, I have a book, as I mentioned earlier, the 4th edition of my book, and you can get a free PDF of the book by going to this link, book.tnllp.com, and we'll give you a free PDF. At that link, you can also, if you're willing to pay for shipping, which I think is less than $10, we'll send you the book, a hard copy of the book. Or you can go to Amazon and you can get an Audible, a version of the book where I narrated the book for you. And the book covers all these items in different chapters. And it's all important stuff, all things that I learned when I was a syndicator and continue to learn over my many, many years as a securities attorney. And I'm happy to share that with you. So this has been Gene Trowbridge of the Trowbridge Nieh Law Group, syndication attorneys. Contact us. Give us a call, go to our website, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. When you go to the website, you can sign up for a free half-hour consultation with one of the 3 attorneys at our firm. And I hope to see you on some more of our YouTube videos, which are always very informative. Thank you.